Hey guys, welcome to lesson 16 where we're going to play a little bit more with classes and objects that we learned in lesson 15. So go ahead and make yourself a new Java project and make a new class called lesson16.java. If you go on to Moodle, there is a recipe.java that I also want you to use. So download recipe.java. Sometimes if you just click it, it just opens and that doesn't really work. So if you right click, save link as or save target as, that'll work. And then you can go put it into your workspace, wherever that is. So I'm going to save it there. And then you go to File, Open File, go to wherever you put that file. And then it should open. I'm going to close my circles from lesson 15. And so now you have these two files. So we don't really have anything in lesson 16 yet. And this recipe class is not really anything yet. We are going to talk a little about what public means today and private. So you will notice that there's some things listed as public and some things listed as private. So if you look back at our vocabulary from last time, this public recipe is our constructor. Public void set servings is a method. Public double get retail cost is a method. And this private double price calorie per calorie is also a method, but it's a private method instead of a public method. And if you look at all of these down here, these are our state variables, or they can be called instance fields also. So we do have those down here. Or these can be called, I really want that to be in all caps, or data members. So it is important to know that these three things mean the same thing. And you'll notice that some of these instance fields are public and private is a cost. So the cost is going to be private. So let's go back to our lesson 16 and let's instantiate some things from our other class. Don't forget to put in your header code, like so. All right, so we are going to create a new object from our recipe class. So we're going to call on recipe. And I don't know if you guys know this about me, but I love Food Network. So we're going to have some Food Network themed variables in this one. So we're going to say recipe good eats equals new recipe. Don't forget your open close brackets. So let's go look at our constructor recipe to see what we need to send it. So if we look at our recipe, we need a string. So let's go back and we'll send it a string. And we're going to name this one meatballs. Now, if you're having trouble, like you're getting this error right here, multiple markers line recipe cannot be resolved to a type. It could be because if you look at your source file, a recipe does not show up here. It's just one of the little quirks of Eclipse. So what you can do is go to your recipe program, copy everything above that last quote, and copy everything up until line 4. So you do not take in the public class recipe or that first open bracket, and just Control C, copy it, and make sure you are in the source, hit new class, and you can name it something like my recipe. Make sure you do not hit that public static void main and click finish and set this up on your own. So then this way it tells that these two programs are going to be connected together. So close out that old recipe, and now instead of recipe in this program, change it to my recipe and new my recipe. And that should take care of it. So make sure you save both of them. And you will get some errors. But don't forget to go look over here and make sure everything is right. So this line 4 should be public my recipe instead. And then if you save it, it should be okay. So if you hover over that, it's not used. So that's an okay error to have. So let's say we're going to finally use good eats. So let's find out how much our good eats are going to cost us. So we'll do double and then pick a variable, pick ff equals good eats dot cost. You know what? Let's not make it ff. Let's make it something like Yummo, a nice Food Network term. Now this gives you an error. What does it say? It says cost is not visible. So if you go look at my recipe, what we had listed as cost, we had said is a private. So if it's private in this program, it won't work in this other one. So the price per calorie also will not work because it's listed as private. So if we change it, so we go back and we say price per calorie, and we send it an integer because that's what it expects. It also says that price per calorie is not visible because it's listed as private. So you might be wondering, what is the point of using a private instance variable if we can't use it in our main category? Well, if you go look at my recipe, you see how this compiles? There's not a single issue with this program. But if you look right here in public double get retail cost, this line right here uses the price per calorie, which is a private. So you can use it within that other program, but then you just don't have access to it outside of the program. It's kind of like how teachers have access to entering your grades, but you don't, because obviously, if you were grading yourself, you would have 100% in every single class, whereas your teachers have more access to that. So your teachers are running the class, and you are running the object. All right, so we're going to do a little bit of a throwback way back to I think it was lesson 2. So we are going to come into our lesson 16 and we're going to cut this with the keyboard. So Control X cuts. So right here, we just declared good eats to be of type my recipe. And then if you remember, that's just declaring, then you can initialize it. So good eats and then Control V equals new recipe. Don't forget your semicolon. So we just declared up here, but the object is not created until we set it equal to whatever it is down here. So whenever you have equals new, that's what actually creates the object. So like, you know all those scanners that we've been running for like a million years so far, really since lesson 7? That's why you always have to have that second line after you ask the question. You have to initialize the scanner, and then you have to have that new scanner line because that information isn't used until this type of line with the new in it. For scanner, it's really next, but you get it. Okay, so now we're going to do something just a little different. So if you look in your My Recipe class, you see this public void set servings int x. Well, what if we didn't set it an int x? What if we sent it some other method? So we created a method like RSVP and then say response. So we're saying that RSVP is our method and response is our variable, which would probably be a Boolean yes or no. But we're not actually going to create this. We haven't created this class, so it is going to give us an error, but we can just use it as an example for this part. So since we haven't created that RSVP class, it's going to look like an error over here. So what we're going to talk about here is something called anonymous objects, while we're pretending that the class RSVP exists. So come in your lesson 16 part and we're going to create RSVP and we're going to say guest equals new RSVP open close parentheses, and it's going to say error because again we have not created the class RSVP, and since RSVP would be a yes or no, that's a boolean, so you can pick either true or false. So this declares and instantiates the RSVP object. So then what we want to do is we want to take this good eats object and then call that RSVP, the method that calls on that RSVP. So set servings. So we want to call on that set servings method in which it expects to receive that RSVP object. So then we send it guest. And that works. So if that RSVP class existed, this would totally compile. Alright, so this would be the way to set it up. We have guest in there, but if you wanted to create an anonymous object, you could take this exact same thing. So I'm going to copy and paste. And honestly, guys, if you haven't been copying and pasting this whole time, you have been missing out. So copy, paste, and extra parenthesis. So this line right here, this line 17, is accomplishing the exact same thing that these two lines of code already did. So this one just sets it equal to a variable and then uses the variable, whereas this one gets straight to the point. Neither one of them is right or wrong. They both accomplish the exact same feat, but there is two different ways to do it. This is the anonymous one right here. Okay, so I'm going to put in a line same as accomplishes same as lines 14 and 15 anonymous. Okay, so we got one more thing to go over here. So I'm going to go down here. So we're going to set this up again. So we're going to say RSVP and say guest 2. Okay, and end that line. And then we're going to say guest 2 equals guest 1, or just guest, because that's what we used up top right here. Oh, and it's saying there's an error because there's a space in here. So let's fix that. Okay, so we created a new object right here because we set it equal to something, right? So created new object up here. But down here, you don't create an object until it's equal to something. But here we're setting it equal to the first item, so we don't actually declare a new object. So this is not a new object. It is using the first guest as a reference. It's not creating object as guest 2, it's just repeating a reference. This right here is kind of like how your mom has an actual name, but you call her mom. When other people refer to her by her first name, she knows it's her. When you call her mom, she knows you're talking to her too. So that's kind of the same thing that's going here. It's referring to the same thing. So you are going to have a second video for this. Stick with it. I know this is a little bit of a longer one, but once we get through lesson 16, you should be good.